Aloha, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Evaluate the Epic. I'm going to be your host, Sprinklebeard, for today. And today, we are evaluating the Bloodletting Spell Sword, Nazeem. Oh, I'm so happy I got that right on the first take. Nazeem is, if you want to do damage and if you want to heal up your party, Nazeem is going to be the character for you. I will stress that there are some minor weaknesses that he has. I don't think the minor weaknesses are enough to not encourage people to play with him. However, I will be touching on the weaknesses of this champion in this video because I don't think he's necessarily the first champion that you want to 6-star on your account. However, I think he's a very fascinating and fun to play with champion, and we're going to make him look good in today's video. So Nazeem is a mage. Mages in this game, we typically focus on them being AoE mages. However, there are some single target mages. Where Nazeem falls into is a category just like Novris, and I have not covered Novris on this account. I really want to. Right now I'm moving gear around, so it's not, I couldn't do it today. Maybe tomorrow or even Wednesday I will plan to review Novris. By the time you see it, it'll be next week, so the day of the week doesn't matter. Nazeem, though, one of the reasons that players are not going to want to build him up, this is the cautionary side of Nazeem specifically, your ultimate deals damage at random, which is one of the worst effects in every video game, because us not being able to choose where our damage goes means that it becomes very unreliable. However, his ult, just like Novris, is a very fast attacking ultimate, so the randomness is not necessarily a huge problem, and it also is a life-stealing ultimate, which is what's going to be really fun about Nazeem. So stat-wise, he's right in line with a lot of our mages at around 3,500. He does have a little bit higher because he is single target. As we can see, he is burst damage and control. His control aspect, I don't agree with. We'll go into more details here in a second. Understand, though, his damage is right in line. His attack interval is normal. His cost for a mage is normal. The biggest appeal for Nazeem, of why you would want Nazeem on a team, is not only is he burst damage, but he's also burst healing. And I'm going to try to show that off the best that I can in this video. So, his talent deals 30% extra damage to targets inflicted with Curse. This talent alone, I'm going to touch on very heavily at first, and then we'll review his kit and his awakenings. So what Curse does in this game, Curse is a cursed unit is unable to perform a basic attack. Most curses only last for about 2.5 seconds, and you can't reliably keep them on a target. A target is cursed for a period of time, and then there's some type of innate cooldown that the game does not tell you about. I think it is 5 seconds. I don't have a way to prove. I mean, I guess that with enough testing I could prove it. But understand, you're not going to heavily be able to rely on this curse effect. On my account, I have a champion that can cause curses, and then we're going to talk about a different champion that I do not have on my account that can cause curses. But the synergy of this curse mechanic is really, really fun. The more I see that champions can curse, the more interested I get in curse comp. So the first champion I will link you guys to is Khamet. Now, Khamet is one of the top-rated mages in the game. He's also AoE, he does enormous amounts of damage, and his basic attack can curse enemies anyways. So every 7 attacks applies a curse to enemies. So here it's telling me that the curse lasts for only 2 seconds, not the 2.5 that I said earlier. But he has a curse, and then he can detonate the curse with his own ability, which kind of acts like him doing burst damage as well. With this being said, this would have amazing synergy that you would have AoE damage from him, you would have single target damage from Nazeem. This also means Khamet would kill off the small fry, letting Nazeem focus on things with higher HP, which is what we would want from our single target DPS champions. So really good synergy here. Nazeem can also curse in his kit. We haven't gotten to that. But him being able to apply a curse means that Khamet could then detonate the curse as well, feeling super good for extra damage there. The main champion I'm going to really, really heavily highlight for curses is Janquar. Janquar has the talent that when blocking enemies, he causes a curse to them. Janquar is a fighter, and specifically he's a magic dealing fighter. So ideally, you're going to be doing tons of magic damage with these champions. So anything that's a heavily armored champion, your mages or any magic damage is going to be better against. Now, hear me out on this. Janquar specifically, as we promote him, he can block up to 3 units once he's promoted up. On top of this, if you awaken him once, we just did a review on Ein, but Janquar, if he afflicts an enemy with curse, now the game just says enemies afflicted by curse will also be applied with a magic vulnerability. I have no way, I don't have Janquar, so I can't prove this. But his magic vulnerability that Janquar provides for 1 Awakening Stone is a 30% damage increase. If there was a way for Janquar to block the dragon, Janquar would be a staple in Dragon for this alone. This debuff is super, super massive. So with that being said, Janquar applying curse to enemies that he's blocking, and then this massive magic increase damage with things like Khamet or Nazeem, and Nazeem being able to heal up Janquar, you just have this brilliant amount of synergy. What's even better is that champions like Janquar, he's an AoE attacker. So there's some crazy synergizing with the curse effects. I'm really, really excited to get Janquar on this account. And I hate to say this, the moment I get Janquar, he's going to be an instant 6-star on my account. Back to Nazeem. Let's talk about his kit. So first of all, we're going to kind of refresh on it. His talent is that he deals 30% extra damage to targets with curse. So the curse only lasts 2 seconds. So in those first 2 seconds of being cursed, the target will be taking extra damage. Let's say it's a big bulky boy. They can be recursed. It's not impossible. However, understand, I don't know what the cooldown is. I'm guessing it is 5 seconds. So his basic attack deals 50% damage to 1 enemy. This is very low. This is one of the reasons that most players will not like Nazeem. I don't know why it is so low. This is a very strange thing to me because no other mage whatsoever has a 50% damage in their kit as their basic attack. I don't get why his specific one is so low. I feel like it's potentially an oversight. However, as we go through his kit does have plenty of damage, and when we show him off in combat, you're going to see that even though this damage value is extremely low, it's not the big hindrance we would think it would be. Next, his passive. So when Cursed Blade deals damage, so Cursed Blade is his ultimate. When Cursed Blade deals damage, restores 3% HP for 1 ally with the lowest HP percentage in range. So he's got this grid where he can attack spaces behind him, just like Mary, and then kind of a shorter range in front of him. A lot of players, from what I've talked to in the community, do not like this reduced range. A lot of players are like, no, I need as much range as possible for my mages to feel effective. It does depend on the level design, though. There's plenty of levels where this design grid, perfectly fine. But this scaling HP goes from 3% up to a total of 5% HP for allies in range, for 1 ally in range. And then obviously as that ally is fully healed, you would move on to the next ally, not fully healed. As that ally is healed past the lowest percentage, then the next ally would be healed. And you could have a seesaw effect where he's healing 2 allies in rapid succession. Cursed Blade. So this is a manual ultimate, so we have to be paying more attention to it. Summons a magical blade, launching it at 1 random enemy in range every 0.5 seconds, dealing 100% damage. To enemies who have been attacked at least 4 times during the ultimate, the blade deals 140% magic damage instead, and inflicts a stun. So we reviewed Ein in the last video, and he has a synergy with champions that stun, and Ein could benefit from healing and from the curse that, oh wait, hold on, he doesn't provide a curse? No. I thought he did. Maybe it's in his Awakenings. I thought it was just in his basic kit that he provided a curse. That could be a huge reason, though. If we go through the Awakenings and he doesn't have a curse, my opinion on this team is going to greatly change. Anyways, this is where his control element comes into play, is that he does have a stun in his ultimate, and ideally with his ultimate. So for characters like Nazeem, characters like Novris, when you have a champion that targets randomly, think about attacking just one target, right? So if we have a single target boss, if we have only one giant enemy for Nazeem to kill, these are the places where Nazeem is going to feel amazing. So in things like your Void Rift, Nazeem's value goes way up because there's a lot bigger, bulkier enemies, or there's a lot of single target bosses that come into range that your whole team can kill much more reliably. So he's a mage that I would argue you're not going to want in some of your bigger AoE areas or like anything with tons of enemies. So think much more towards your single target champion, or the less amount of enemies to kill, the better he's going to be. So in terms of upgrades, when we fully upgrade his skill here, it's going to go down from 1400 rage minus 200 down to 1200. So that is a very nice increase or decrease for him. The blade base damage can go up by 10%. So I'm sorry, I'm misunderstanding how I want to read this. The blade base damage is increased by 10%, increased damage by 15%. I'm assuming that this base damage is going from 100 up to 110 and then eventually 120. And then this extra damage of the ultimate from the fourth strike would go from 140 to 170. And then the amount of intervals, instead of it being 4 hits from the same blade, it would only be 3 attacks, which is amazing. That is a big game changer to the way his ultimate works. Specifically, I would imagine the stun here, which is really weird, only lasts for 0.5 seconds. This might need a rework, or it just means that you could attack the same champion and stun them multiple times over and over again. Let's look at his Awakenings. I'm getting worried. So his Awakenings, when activated, Cursed Blade immediately inflicts curse upon the 2 nearest enemies in range. Thank goodness, that's why I was thinking that he can curse. And his curse lasts for 5 seconds. That is enormous. That also activates that talent for him for 5 seconds, where he's doing that increased damage for 5 seconds. So unfortunately, he is a character that Awakenings are going to be much more important on. That's also going to make base Nazeem feel a lot worse than once you start getting to the point where you can awaken him. Awakening 2 is extra 5% attack, always a valuable stat. When HP is below 50%, Life Sighten takes effect on both the target ally and the hero himself. So this gives him some AoE healing for himself and another target. That is absolutely great for things like any boss whatsoever that has those giant blanket attacks, or even things like Dragon, that he could be a very valuable healer to help your main healer top people off, or certain champions like Dolores, who often are not doing damage. If Nazeem is doing damage, he could be healing her back up, which could be very useful in its own way. Awakening 4, more rage regen. This is very great for Nazeem because admittedly, all of his damage is in that ultimate. So the more often we can get into his ultimate, the better. I would even argue that rage regen could be very, very valuable on Nazeem because his damage is not what is healing the target. the target has a static 5% of their max HP being healed. So this is one of the champions where, although I would heavily encourage you go the more damage route, you know, attack percentage, crit rate, crit damage, attack speed, I could argue Rage Regen is going to feel valuable on him. I've been told that there is very heavily diminishing returns on Rage Regen after 40%. So aim for that 40%, or if you're going for a set bonus that gives like additional rage per attack, will feel amazing on Nazeem. Damage of Cursed Blades ignores 25% of magic resistance. This is crazy, especially if you say that you're going to pair him with champions like Janquar or like Valkyra has an increased damage for magic damage, or Mary increases that magic damage given. The fact that he would ignore an additional 25% of magic resist, I feel like Nazeem is going to be able to hit very hard. Again, I would heavily encourage you to focus on using him anywhere where you have fewer enemies rather than more enemies. Now let's talk about where he is going to be best useful at. In the campaign, we tend to not be overrun by enemies. Nazeem is probably going to feel perfectly fine here. Because of his shorter range, make sure you pair him with something like a tank or a fighter. That way Nazeem can get his damage in. And until you awaken him, I would say that his kit is going to be less effective. Typically, when I talk about where a champion is going to be most useful at, it is them unawakened. So for the rest of this video, as I talk about where is he going to be most useful, understand I'm assuming that you're not playing with a combo piece and you don't have him fully awakened, because that heavily changes how the champion plays. With that being said, understand that if you do awaken him, I do see great potential in his damage output. Because Nazeem is kind of an off healer, right? Because when you go into his ultimate, he will heal up people in range. He's going to be useful anywhere where you need a healer and where you need magic damage. His damage is not is not low by any stretch of the imagination. And that heal during his ultimate lets you kind of pick between, do I want to heal or do I want to do a whole lot of burst damage? And then if it's something like a boss, cool, you're healing while doing a whole lot of damage to the boss. I will say, though, that might make him more difficult to play with, and a more experienced player, or it's going to be a little more of a challenge, because you're not just going to ult for that extra damage all the time. There's going to be times where you need to save that ultimate to heal and to damage simultaneously. So in the campaign, anywhere that you need a healer or mage DPS, he's going to feel great. Because of his short range, just make sure you accommodate for that. Because he can reach behind himself, there's going to be a bunch of levels where that gives him immaculate range. So any of the paths that have like an S-shaped curve where the enemy has to walk along one path and then circle back around, his specific range is going to be very valuable for stuff like that. In the arena, anywhere where you need a magic dealer, I can see him being good. Absolutely not for AoE. Again, one of the other issues that we have is that his ult hitting randomly heavily restricts his ability for AoE to be useful. And then against flying enemies are resistant to magic, so I wouldn't bring him into those two. But for single target, I could see him shining, and healing up some of your champions can be very useful. In the sustained DPS, this is a 50-50. If you go for a curse comp, I could see him being very valuable. And when you get to the later stages of sustained DPS, the last couple of waves are weak to magic, so he will be beneficial there. And so far from what I've seen, cursing is a very effective way to deal with those last waves. However, you're probably going to need a more reliable healer. Just depends on how you're geared up or how quickly you can take out enemies. In the Void Rift, if we're fighting any bosses or any of the big bulky enemies, he's going to be fine because he's magic, and a lot of the big bulky enemies also have heavy armor on, so he's going to be fine there. And then his ability to be an off healer can be exceptionally good as well to heal people in range. If you are able to put him in a position where he's not taking damage and can heal somebody who is taking damage, that is obviously the best way to play with any healer. Sunday, let me finish this video and I'll take you outside, okay? I know, you need to go for a walk. I know. Give me 10 more minutes. Is that fair? My dog is looking at me because she wants to go outside. Promotion raids. Marksman, I wouldn't encourage him here. He can be a healer as you get higher up and the bugs start attacking you back. You could bring him here, again, for experience or as an off healer. I don't think this is going to be the best place for him. In mages, he will do perfectly fine, and the randomness won't matter on the lower path. So I would say he's very usable here. However, make sure that as you are using him here, that you are setting him up for the greatest amount of success. Okay, good. I have Volca. I was doing this the other day, trying to show off how Nazeem could be useful, and I forgot that I'm using Khamet's gear. So I put myself into a very bad situation, and it was hilarious.
Intrusion is unforgivable.
So here, even though he's only doing 50% damage, you can see that with good gear, he can still hold off this bottom lane by himself. And he, more importantly, he's going to be able to hold it off reliably by himself. I'm not going to be able to show any champions taking damage and him healing specifically in this level, but we will show off his ultimate in this level. So as we can see, his damage is useful. Now I do have him in some of my best gear, and as we're seeing, he's still taking a whole bunch of shots to kill a target. Nazeem is a champion I think that they either need to update, or it's because of his curse synergy that they probably went a little too hard on the curse synergy specifically, that he's probably does some crazy amounts of damage to cursed enemies. Here I'm using a champion like I to set these traps because that will at least let him be a bit more useful, that if they run into the icicles, they're just going to die quickly. At one point there is like 2 or 3 of these big boys, and I will use Nazeem's ultimate because I do think it looks amazing as well. I guess we'll just use it against this guy. But he summons the cursed sword above him, and then swords rain down from above. I can show him off in the EXP battle, which is one of the best places that we show off champions. But as you can see, he can hold a lower lane by himself. However, he is in very good gear, so that 50% damage I would be cautious with. His base damage, it seems like they've set him up to not be an amazing champion, and I'm curious as to why some of those numbers are so low. Guild Boss and Artifact Material Raid, these are another 2 areas where I do think Nazeem could do some decent work. We're going to see if we can show him off. If we can show him off in here. I do not have Nazeem fully promoted. Does that matter? Yes, it does. Yeah, he gets this extra 30% damage to cursed enemies at rank 5 promotion. So, understand he is not going to be showing off his best case. However, I don't have any cursed champions in this party anyways to properly show off. Where's my tank?
Make it my redemption.
Oh my gosh, they changed. That is not Salazar. What the hell? Okay.
Intrusion is unforgivable.
This is going to change things a little bit. So here he's only doing about 4,000 damage, not the most impressive. As we can see, our Olog just died.
After all.
I was not ready for that in the slightest. So we need to go down to a level where Olog can survive long enough for me to show off Nazeem's power. Let's try 16. I'm actually a bit sad that Olog did not just survive that. Sunday, calm down.
Intrusion is unforgivable.
Alright, so yeah, this is good enough for now. Let's just put up some bodyguards.
This is war.
So here are Olog's at like half health, right? This is one of those cases where using Nazeem's ultimate can be good, but here we can see that the blades are going to spaces behind him, which makes his single target DPS here a bit more difficult. And his rage regen isn't fast enough, even with some of my best gear on, for him to get to this point where he can reliably heal up the tank. So right now I would just say that his numbers are a bit undertuned for you to reliably use him as a main healer. Again, that is not his job in this game. He is kind of an like he's a damage dealer that will synergize with your healers. But for that reason, do not depend on him as a main healer. When we talk about Tide, Tide ultimately, since he does scale off of a lot of the damage stats, he's going to be okay here. Because of his reduced range and then the randomness of his ult, I would not encourage him for Tide, or if you're trying to work on your Tide, I don't think this is the best place for him. However, if you are getting up to higher waves and you have certain champions like defenders that are dying, and your healers are not pulling the weight on their own, having Nazeem as a secondary, like a third healer, because I have a healer on the top and bottom facing inward to heal all my ground units, he could be an extra healer. I don't think that this is the best use of him, but it is a use that you could consider. Or if you love Nazeem, understand that that is a way to make him look a bit better. Resource raid. So here again, with his reduced damage, I'm concerned. I'm a little baffled that Nazeem has so many things kind of working against him. So at the moment, I would say where people have said that he's not going to be as useful, I do kind of see it. You can put him in a position like this. I do think, though, that one of the better places when you have these reduced ranges is to do something more along the line of this. Just it gives them a bit more coverage and lets them hit things a lot closer to them. But here, Volka's going to be doing our AoE damage, and then we're going to be counting on Nazeem to help kill off these bigger HP bulky dudes. And he's doing okay here. Again, he is kind of going to be more of a support healer in this game because some of those damage stats are so low. But when we get to his ultimate, it does its work. It is fun to use. I think it looks really cool. It's just unfortunate that his base damage on his basic attack is so low. I think that's going to be the hardest thing to play with him or make him feel amazing. However, if you can get him to a point where he's reliably ulting frequently, I could see Nazeem being an absolute monster to have on a team. When it comes to our gear raids, Gear Raid 2 would be an amazing place for him. We have a lot of enemies that are more magically weak than physically weak, and his ability to heal up teammates could be a great place for him to shine. However, I don't think that this is going to be like the #1 place for him. Admittedly, because of some of his damage values being so low, again, that 50% on auto attack, it's just going to hold him back a little too much, in my opinion. But his ability to heal up allies is going to be useful here. In Gear Raids 1 and 3, it's kind of the same thing, that his ultimate is going to be useful for healing up allies as the enemies get too close. Because he is a magic dealer, he will do more effective in Gear Raid 1 rather than 3. However, the effect that is as he's hitting with his ultimate, he does heal up allies based upon their percent HP. It does make him like a pseudo healer or an off healer, where it's going to be useful if you ult where you're dealing damage and needing to heal at the same time. I would argue, though, that a healer, like a general healer, might feel better in both of these positions. But if you feel like you just need a bit more damage, or like for a big issue I had in Gear Raid 3 for a while, is one thing with sneaking through. His ultimate, attacking every 0.5 seconds, and then healing allies, could be the difference maker for you. In Faction Trials, the basic trial, this is going to be one of the better places for Nazeem. I don't think that this is going to be like the best showcase for him, but this is just an example of where he could be best at and his ability to heal everybody in range of him. But if you put him in a position like this, he's able to heal those spaces behind him, the spaces beside him, the spaces in front of him. His range is kind of unique, that being able to hit all of these squares. I know, Sunday, I'm taking longer than I wanted to. Does make him kind of valuable here. I'm going to see if I can let him ultimate one time before dismissing him. However, these guys might survive, because my plan, I tend to burst down these enemies. Yeah, they're going to survive here. So unfortunately, at the moment, what we have is he's not doing enough damage on the high-level content that I want him to do enough damage. I think his numbers might just need adjusted. So I'll message Watcher of Realms on the Discord and see if they have any plans to potentially increase his damage. Because him having 50% on a basic attack does not make sense. It's very strange. In the cultist faction trial, there are times where the enemies are doing damage to your heroes, so having a healer is very essential there. So, for, crap, is it cultist or esoterics? Now that I say it, I think it's esoterics is what I mean to say. Sunday, I will take you outside. I have not forgotten you. It's esoterics. In the esoterics, they take some damage. So you will need a healer in that. Again, I don't think he's the best healer. However, you don't need tons of healing. You just need some healing to sustain. So this is a reason where having him, you do maybe want to take him up to 40. For players that are saying, hey, the way that you've showcased him, I just want to sell him for the Awakening Shop. You could just understand that this game is still in its first year of being out. It only takes them until they decide to buff a champion before the champion becomes amazing. And a simple upgrade to him, if they increase this base damage from 50 to 100%, could instantly take him into really good position. And then let's say if they buffed his ultimate to attack the target with the highest HP or the highest defense, he could become instantly amazing really, really fast. Ladies and gentlemen, that's our review for Nazeem. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm a little sad because I thought his base kit was a bit stronger, and I didn't realize that his basic attack was as weak as it is. So for that reason, I will say err on the side of caution when working with Nazeem. I don't think he's a terrible champion. However, he is in my strongest gear, and he did not present as well as I was hoping him to present. With that being said, if he's your favorite, play with him, have fun, prove me wrong, show me your setup. Maybe you have Janquar and you have him promoted to your Nazeem up to 5-star, and your Nazeem is just ripping things to ribbons. That is something I could do better on a showcase for him. Maybe if I ever pull Janquar, I will revisit Nazeem to try to show him off properly. If you liked the video, please hit the like and subscribe button down below. I greatly appreciate it. And if you want to interact with me, I stream on twitch.tv/sprinklebeard, Sunday through Wednesday, most weeks. I try to stream every day that I can. My stream can kind of be a little kooky because I'm awake. I work overnight job, so I'm usually awake all night, but I try to stream during the day because that's when I get the most interaction for this game. Thank you very much for watching, and of course, until that next time, ta-ta.